There are about 50 million children in American public schools today. Over half of them are people of color. Their teachers, over 3 million of them, are overwhelmingly white. And as the gap between teachers and students widens, the problem becomes bigger and bigger. So why is this such a big deal? Students of color are lower performing. White students have average scores of at least 26 points higher than black students in math and reading on national exams. What's more, studies have shown that children of color are more likely to be harshly disciplined for the same behaviors as their white peers. In LA, black students make up 9% of the students, but 26% of the suspensions. Chicago, 45% of students, 76% of suspensions. In Boston, black girls were 11 times more likely than their white counterparts to be suspended. In New York, that number is 12. Black children make up less than 20% of preschoolers, but make up more than half of out-of-school suspensions.
It's something about those students that's informing the decision to use really punitive discipline within those spaces. And so we need to be talking about these other things, talking about why it is that we're so punitive.
But when kids of color have teachers who look like them, the equation changes.
They find that there is increased learning across the board. And it's not just about race, but the race of the teacher, the racial or ethnic background of the teacher is a part of this.
In one Tennessee study, children who had a teacher from the same racial background had math and reading test scores that were 3 to 4 percentile points higher on average. But increased academic achievement isn't the only reason we need more teachers of color. If kids don't see people who look like them in positions of power, it's harder for them to imagine themselves in those roles. This sends a powerful, damaging message about who's fit to be in charge.
There are many consequences for having a teacher workforce that doesn't reflect the student body. It can impact what we call their attachment to school. So the attachment is how invested they are in both the school itself and in their success within that school, which could over time lead to a greater likelihood of dropping out of school and also poor performance.
You see, what people often overlook is that schools weren't designed to just teach kids how to read and do math. They were also designed to socialize children.
We often think about schools and academic achievement, but really they teach children how to become citizens, how to engage in the world, about democracy.
That means the consequences aren't just academic, they're psychological too. And when the adults at the front of the classrooms are a monolithic group, we run into some problems.
Having a teacher workforce that doesn't reflect the diversity of students means that we have less input from individuals who are like those students in deciding about the curriculum.
And because we talk about race so ineffectively, it's really hard to get the well-meaning teachers to understand how they contribute to this problem, even when they don't mean to or want to.
Adults within those schools, they come from societies that already have these systems of inequality and understandings about race, and they bring that to the school with them. That can impact how they interact with students, how they organize them, what they say to them. So if a teacher doesn't have an understanding of their background and that reflects in how they're treated, that's going to impact how a student understands themselves and how they understand their place within the world.
And unfortunately, this problem doesn't get solved by just hiring more teachers of color. Just like their white colleagues, they can also carry stereotypes with them into the classroom.
The same types of ideas and stereotypes that inform teachers' understandings don't just inform white teachers' understandings, they also inform the understandings of teachers of color. And so while those teachers may be, in many cases, more conscious that these stereotypes exist because they themselves may have experienced them, it doesn't mean that they themselves can't play into those stereotypes in ways that still end up resulting in kind of detrimental circumstances or outcomes for students of color in schools.
So what do? Yes, more teachers of color would help, but alone it's not enough. Everyone needs some retraining, but most importantly, entire systems need to be rethought.
It's not an either or. We can work towards diversifying our teacher workforce while simultaneously continue to have conversations about how ideas about race and about socioeconomic status shape how individuals approach education, how they approach teaching, and how they approach discipline and school policies.
And while there are a lot of school districts across the country working to recruit more teachers of color, offer cultural sensitivity training, and promote more open conversations about race, there are plenty that aren't doing anything at all. The fact is, it's harder work than anyone had anticipated, and they can't do it alone.